Have you ever noticed that the digital world has led to your expectations growing and your patience shrinking? No? Are you positive about that? I'll give you some examples just so that you can be sure. A website takes half a second longer to load than it normally does, and immediately you're annoyed. An online form isn't quite as straightforward as you thought it would be, so you roll your eyes and then stab the back button multiple times to get the hell out of there. You experience buffering when trying to stream a TV show, and you feel like disconnecting the router and throwing it out the window. If you recognize any of those things, don't worry, you're not alone. I myself increasingly feel that impatience, and a lot of other people do as well. If our declining tolerance with technology doesn't alarm you, then what it's leading to definitely should. You see, that impatience, once confined to the digital domain, has begun to gradually bleed into the physical world as well. In this video, I want to explore why that shift is happening, why it's accelerating, and what all this will mean as AI, robotics, and the evolving landscape of tech reshapes the world around us. We naturally see the digital world as something separate, a space in our phones and laptops, a place to check messages, swipe through our socials, and watch videos. But psychologically, the digital realm is quickly becoming a benchmark for how life itself should treat us. Digital environments are designed to be instant, predictable, personalized, and error-corrected, always available and always optimized. Each interaction is formulated to remove as much friction as possible. Inconveniences are smoothed out and problems are solved before we even have a chance to notice them. That's why we get frustrated so quickly when they go wrong. Our brains now think that digital interaction should never contain friction. And once you get used to things being perfect and immediate, anything that falls short feels like a broken version of reality. A 3-second delay on a music app now feels like an affront. A website that needs us to click through several times to find what we need feels like bad design. And a video that takes a few seconds to load feels like torture. None of this is intentional. Nobody sat down and planned a reformatting of our minds. It's just conditioning as a result of optimization. But regardless of the origin, our minds are being trained to expect frictionless outcomes as the default state. And this is adjusting what we can bear in every aspect of our lives. Zoom out and it's clear to see that the frustrations we feel online have already spilled into everyday life. We expect food to be delivered in 15 minutes and for our Uber to arrive moments after we've ordered it. We expect to be able to communicate with anyone, anywhere in the world instantaneously. And we feel annoyed if the things we buy can't be delivered the next day or increasingly on the same day. For the average person, these expectations wouldn't have just been deemed a bit abnormal 20 years ago. They'd have been viewed as positively bizarre. But technology has raised the bar. And once the bar rises, it never comes back down. What was once seen as elite convenience experienced only by the super rich is now simply expected by everyone. But there's a serious problem in this recalibration, because while the digital world can bend to our needs, the physical natural world can't match it. That's because reality is embedded with friction. Weather changes and physical machines break. People get tired and roads become bumpy. Yet our brains are beginning to see inconvenience as an unnatural part of life. We're starting to perceive problems as things that shouldn't exist, things that humans shouldn't have to bear. In that sense, we're starting to see the physical world like it's bad software, glitchy and full of bugs. And the worst thing is we don't notice this change happening because it's gradual, but gradual changes aren't any less real. The rewiring of how we think the world should be has led our expectations to become distorted. What we are seeing is a fundamental shift in our collective expectations as a species. Our move into a robotic society in the coming decades is where I believe things will really start to accelerate, because robotics will increasingly bring the physical world more in line with the digital world. And while it will never be as smooth and cannot be frictionless, it will bring reality closer to the digital ideal. Imagine a home where meals are cooked to our exact preference and clothes are washed and folded automatically. Any items we want are delivered by autonomous drones and repairs happen before things even break. I'm talking about a reality where our environment adjusts to our mood, schedule, and biometrics. And this is not some kind of futuristic speculation, it's the stated path of development for domestic robotics and ambient computing. Importantly, once the physical world begins to feel automated and precise, our tolerance for anything imperfect will shrink again. Human-made food will feel slow and human-delivered items will feel unreliable. In fact, any human-run system will feel inefficient, not because we have changed, but because our reference point has. Robotics will raise the expectation bar to a whole new height, and we will recalibrate in response without even noticing it. So far we've talked about the impact of physical automation. Now imagine a world where you're not just assisted, but what you can do and what you're capable of doing is unlimited. Because in a digital environment, that's possible. In fact, it's becoming more and more possible with every passing day. As immersive digital environments evolve and progress into unbounded virtual versions of the physical world, we'll be able to teleport, fly, change the weather, and remove danger. Realistic digital worlds will mean we can always walk on a perfectly flat surface or alter our surroundings in an instant. They will finally enable us to exist without friction, unhindered by the elements and in a constant, endless state of comfort. The metaverse, when fully realized, will combine the convenience of the digital world with the familiarity of the physical world and add the impossible on top. We will finally have created a world with no friction at all. Well done us. Well, not really, because existing in this way gives rise to a significant problem. Once we spend enough time in these perfectly controlled environments, the physical world really will feel broken. It might even be unbearable by comparison. Why does it take hours to get to Australia? Why does this woodland feel colder than my ideal temperature? Why can't I customize my surroundings? Why can't I remove the weather? I know these questions sound completely absurd today, but then so would complaining about a website being slow 30 years ago when the alternative was going to a library. Crucially, the metaverse introduces a whole new comparison point, a world in which everything will be possible. And a change of that scale will rewrite our psychology far more than something like social media ever did. When you look at the trend unfolding, our direction is obvious. Digital convenience increased impatience with the internet, so robotics will change our expectations in the real world. And the metaverse will create supernormal standards that make the natural world seem difficult by comparison. Importantly, each step pulls us further from the physical limitations of reality, which is problematic. But to be clear, all that doesn't mean that the future will be bleak. I'm not trying to scare people, and I'm certainly not trying to fearmonger. Quite the opposite, in fact. I just think we need to recognise what's happening, because we are eroding something important, something that's driven us for millennia and made humanity what it is today. We're losing our grit and we're losing our tolerance for imperfection. We might even remove our ability to adapt and dissolve our resilience. And we might forget that not everything should be controlled, that the unpredictable and the unplanned are an important part of life. The physical, natural world will not become unbearable. It will stay exactly the same as it is right now, but our expectations are beginning to outpace it. And as that process progresses, the world will feel increasingly broken, even though it isn't. So I'd like to leave you with a question. If technology keeps raising the expectation bar and our brains keep recalibrating to match it, what happens when reality cannot keep up? Will we simply let the physical world become frustrating to us and spend more time in the digital space? Or will we reshape physical environments to eliminate friction altogether? Perhaps, and I think this would be the best route for us to follow, we could rediscover the value of imperfection. We could celebrate unpredictability and mild discomfort, realizing that it adds spice to the human experience. I believe these are questions we will need to face in the coming years, whether we realize it or not. And so I think we should start discussing them now before we drift further into frustration and impatience with the world we live in. If you found this interesting, feel free to watch some of my other videos on the future of technology, AI, and the human experience. And if you want to stay ahead of how these changes will reshape your life, you can subscribe for more. As always, thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you soon. This video was based on my writing over at layeredfuture.com. If you'd like to explore the full article or browse through other topics, you'll find it all there.